Alright, what's going on, guys? So we're here to talk about mistakes and how to avoid doing them. So I've taught a lot of TOEFL students over the years, and I've seen these 5 common mistakes in the listening section. So it's really valuable for you to know this stuff so you don't have to make the same mistakes as most other students. It's very important that you pay close attention to this video. Watch it again if you don't understand everything. I say this a lot when I teach TOEFL online because there's a lot of noise online. There's a lot of YouTube channels. There's a lot of things for you to consume for free. I just really want you to know that this is very valuable. People pay me a lot of money to give them this advice, okay? So pay attention, stay to the end, and make sure that you understand all of these mistakes and why it's important to not do them for the TOEFL listening, okay? All right, so 5 mistakes that you need to avoid. Let me stand this way this time. So the first thing you want to avoid is you try to understand everything. Yeah, you don't want to understand everything. Well, you do, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is for you to understand the most important pieces of information, and you do that by knowing the structure. If you want to know more about that, I made a video about TOEFL listening, improve your score by 3 points, where I talk about that more. But your goal is not really to understand everything, even though that's great if you do. It's more to be able to understand what's most important and to anticipate the questions. You want to make sure that you know the question types that you're going to get asked, because that's what you get scored on. You get scored on your answers to the questions. You don't get scored on how well you listened, really. I mean, the questions are supposed to be a reflection of that. But really what your score is like, can you answer these questions? So get very good at answering TOEFL questions. Get really good at knowing the types of questions that you can expect after the listening. Just to give you a quick example, every listening passage is followed by a main idea question, also known as a gist question. So you know that you have to listen for the main idea when you're listening, okay? So this piece of advice, you don't want to try to understand everything. I mean, that's great, but really what you want to get good at is being able to anticipate the types of questions you'll get. And when you can anticipate those questions, you know what you need to listen for when you take the exam, okay? First advice. The second advice, the second mistake that a lot of students make is you open your eyes. Close your eyes. Close them now. No, I'm just kidding. Idea is that listening is a difficult skill because you can't rely on your eyes. Usually in everyday conversations, when we're talking to people, we focus on hand gestures, like this stuff I'm doing now. We focus on my facial expression. You focus on the context, the situation. You focus on a lot of different things besides just the sounds coming out of my mouth. But when you get on the phone, it's a very different story. Most people don't like talking on the phone in another language because it's very hard, because you only have the voice. For another example, really quickly, is blind people. People who can't see anything, they have a heightened sense of listening because they have to rely on their ears. It's okay, to be honest, on the TOEFL, you have to open your eyes. You can't close your eyes because you have to look at the screen, you have to look at the pictures, you have to write down a couple notes. But you don't want to look around the room. When you take the test, you'll be in a room with a bunch of other people taking the test at the same time. You don't want to look at them. When I took the test once, I took it a couple times, but one time when I took it, another student had a problem with their computer. They raised their hand, the person came, and I was in the listening section. I was looking at this person, and then I realized, I haven't been listening for like a minute because my eyes distracted me. Your eyes distract you from the listening. Make your computer, make your desk your world, okay? Don't close your eyes, but make sure that you focus just on your notes in front of you and the computer. All right, mistake number 3, you take bad notes. Okay, so what do I mean by bad notes? Well, it goes back to number 1 where you don't know what's most important, where you try to write down everything. You don't write down everything, okay? Just write down a couple things that are important that you think might be detail questions later. Okay? You want to take notes, and you also want to take notes on very specific words and phrases. A kind of general rule is that, I may make a video about this in the future, but basically for note-taking, you should only write down verbs and nouns. Maybe some adjectives, for the most part, verbs and nouns, particularly nouns. You want to skip prepositions, articles, personal pronouns, and so on. You want to skip those things. So for example, if I wrote the sentence, I went to the store, you definitely don't want to write all that down in your notes. I write WNTSTR. So all I use is the verb and the important noun store. You want to write down verbs and nouns in your notes when you take notes, so you can take them down quickly. Also, you'll notice that I didn't spell them correctly. When you write down notes, only write down consonants. Do not write down vowels. Vowels is A-E-I-O-U. Don't write them down. Because I can know what this means, went store, without needing the vowels. Now you might say like you have no idea what it means, you as the viewer have no idea what it means, or you'll forget what it's talking about later. You won't, okay? Because you're listening to something and then you're going to answer questions right after. It's very fresh in your memory, okay? So you'll know what this means 95% of the time. And if you don't know what it means, it's okay. I know what it means. That's what's most important. The TOEFL graders do not check your notes, okay? All right, so you take bad notes. Mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, you write down the main idea. This is a very famous piece of advice that a lot of TOEFL teachers give, is to identify the main idea, write down the main idea. You don't have to do that. It's very important to identify the main idea, but you don't have to write it down. Why? Because sometimes you don't really know what the main idea is until it finishes, until the end of the listening. You're going to have to listen to the whole thing until you realize, okay, this was pretty much about blank, whatever it was about. When you are trying to listen for the main idea, I have to find the main idea, it's so important, they're going to ask me, I have to find the main idea, you're focusing on trying to listen to a sentence or listening to a word and being like, oh, that's the main idea. But that's not really how we get main ideas. I get the main idea of something after I read everything, after I listen to everything. I mean, I have some ideas about what it might be while I'm listening, but really I get a very clear picture when it's finished. Okay? So think about that. Think about when you're listening, I'm going to have to answer a main idea question. I need to figure out what the main idea is here, what this is mostly about. Think about it while you're listening. Don't write it down. You don't have to. You'll know what it is when it finishes, right? Make sense? Maybe? Hopefully? Okay. That's a really huge secret advice. I've never heard anybody else say that anywhere else, okay? This is valuable. I know what I'm doing, okay? So make sure you take notes on this stuff. The last thing is you think like a student. Yeah, again, in this, in another video where improve your score by 3 points for the listening section, I talk about the importance of thinking like a teacher. When you're thinking like a student, you think like, I have to answer these questions correctly, I have to find this information, I have to do this. No, instead think like a teacher. What does this person in the listening want me to know? What are they trying to teach me? Why are they telling me this information? Why are they telling me this information, but not telling me another piece of information? What makes this so special? When you start thinking like a teacher, you start asking the right questions. Very important that you start asking the right questions. The right questions are, why did they put this here? What do they want me to know? Why is this detail here? Why did they say that number? When you ask these kind of why questions, you're thinking like a teacher. Because the teacher is doing it for a certain reason, right? When you're thinking like a student, you're thinking like, what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? That's not going to help you. In fact, it's going to frustrate you. Instead, what you want to do is you want to think about the structure. Think about the way the information is being presented to you. Think about the way that the teacher says something. Think about the way it's being, I think I said this already, presented to you. But just think about the way that things are done and follow the structure. And then you'll be thinking like a teacher, okay? Not like a student. All right, Hope you found that helpful. If you need some more help, www.TOEFLspeakingteacher.com. That's our website. And we have a TOEFL emergency course. Wait, before you go, how would you like to know everything you need to know about the TOEFL in 3 days? 3 days. I developed this TOEFL emergency course that gives all of these kind of tips, tricks, and strategies, and I give you a schedule to follow step by step, and you can finish it in 3 days. It's pretty awesome. You can go there and check out more. Thank you guys for listening to the end. If you're here, that means you're motivated. Stay motivated, stay positive, and see you in another video. All right, take care, guys.